glad you made it to the podcast. I
Yeah.
know I was a little late to my own, but
It's all right.
We're
It's all
here.
right. We got grace for you.
yeah, like you said, man, God made it happen for a reason. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can spread some type of love or knowledge or something. I don't know.
No, for sure. I'm excited to be on the podcast. Two, if you guys don't know this, like Travis is probably one of the most generous people I know. He won't say that, but like just to give you some history. So we set up the podcast room. He paid for everything. Our young adults college ministry is trying to do a podcast. He let us use everything for free. And then also we do our young adults college night here at Brick and Loft during the summer, and just open up the building to us. And it's cool. Like, you don't find people like that. And so thank you for one, having me on, and then two, for allowing us to use spaces that you hold sacred and dear.
Yeah, appreciate you guys being here. It's God put on my heart in the very beginning to have some type, whatever I do in business, to be able to glorify Him. And I don't think it's spread enough in the business world. People can claim to be Christian, and they do, and they are, but they don't necessarily guide their business around it, because you don't want to like upset the masses, your potential clients. But
no, for sure,
I've been called to do it a little differently and just be very upfront with it. So honestly, I think it's more of me thanking you guys being here, because I feel like it's like a blessing to the building and the business, just having the Word of God spoken inside of it, which is pretty exciting. So I love seeing people come and celebrate and find a safe haven here and enjoy being here. So,
no, that's super cool.
Yeah, and then the podcasting, there's no way I could have done this by myself.
No,
yeah,
he would have figured it out.
Yeah, we had that trip to At Home, and then we decided At Home was not it.
Yeah,
and then we
went to Home Goods first.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was. Couldn't find anything at Home Goods.
No Home Goods. Yeah, we walked in and we were like, "This is not our space."
It's crazy. I was thinking about that, like, because even BPI was with us, and I'm like, 3 grown men walking around Home Goods trying to find decor without context. I'm like,
oh yeah, no.
I wonder what people were thinking.
We talked about culture earlier. We're hitting every culture section.
Yeah, literally.
And BPI.
Yeah, I call him BPI. He goes by Baby Isaiah, because we're both Isaiah. So I'm PI, Pastor Isaiah, and he's BPI, Baby Pastor Isaiah. Because it's weird, like when you walk up to somebody, you're like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Isaiah." I'm like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And then he literally follows me up and goes, "Hey, yeah, I'm Isaiah too." And they're like, "You're both Isaiah?" Like, yeah.
You understand that I know that exactly, right? Because we're like, "Hey, I'm Travis." And then my other partner says, "I'm also Travis." Mm-hmm. And then my third partner says, "I'm Travis as well."
That's insane.
So we only go by last names.
Really?
Yeah. So like everybody calls me Turner,
okay.
Lanning, Hanson, whatever, but nobody goes by first names. And even the people that work here at the office know, they'll be like, Turner.
So even when clients call, do they?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say
not my own clients. They don't know the other
can I
guys.
talk to Travis? Which one?
Yeah. Well, when we answer the office phone, if they're calling for just like, if they're like, "Hey, can I speak to Travis?"
Yeah.
A lot of times it's my partner that answers the phone, because it's tapped to his phone line on accident. I mean, too, right? He gets all the inbound phone calls. And it drives him nuts.
Because I wonder how you guys work that one out.
Well, it's like the Google My Business people,
okay.
But it's like their spam sector, so they like call like 3 times a day, like,
geez.
"You're not showing up on Google. We can help you by paying X, Y." And he like hangs up, and he's like, "Take me off the list." And when they call in and they're like, "Can I speak to Travis?" He's like, "Which one?"
That's funny.
Because there's 3 of us. Most of the time it's me, because if it's real estate stuff, I'm out there active doing the real estate thing. But every now and then it's for him or for my partner. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
So you had talked about, which I'm super curious. So for those of you guys who don't know, I'm a pastor, serve at a local church here in Lubbock. And so it's easy for me to talk about being a Christian in the space that I'm in, right? Like it's expected. If I'm not a Christian in the church or acting like a Christian in the church, I probably shouldn't be there. But for you, like being in the workspace, right? Like your demographic, and I'm not trying to do generalities, but for the most part in the marketplace, it's not very prevalent that you see or even hear people talk about being Christians or walking out their faith. What's that journey been like for you? Like, do you find that it's easy to share your faith, or do you find that it's like something that's almost an afterthought?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to say that is, I don't think it's easy or hard. I think it just is. I think it's just what I'm supposed to do. And so I don't look at it as like, it's not something I've ever looked and been like, "Oh, I'm kind of nervous to share this." It's more of like, I know that that's my purpose.
Yeah.
And what I'm supposed to do. So I have zero fear or angst or sometimes even excitement. I don't know how to explain that, but it's just kind of like part of normal life of saying like hello, right?
Okay.
So it's just kind of like, I don't mind talking to people about the Lord during showings, and like I've prayed for clients and
Wow.
I've helped people bless houses, and we've done, where we hold hands outside their new house with their family, and they've blessed houses and things like that,
Dang.
and prayed inside. So I've had really cool moments.
That's super cool.
And I've also had, just you talk about power in the name. I've just had, even on my signature, it just says like a Bible verse at the bottom.
Gotcha.
I've had people curse me out like through text or call me and like basically say like that I'm, a piece of crap and I should take it off my signature line and stuff, all
Whoa.
just from just a verse at the bottom. Not like
Interesting.
I don't text people and say, hey, good working with you. You should convert to Christianity.
Yeah,
it's not
no,
how,
for
it's
sure.
just usually like if it comes up, it comes up. And then a lot of times I'll just kind of bring it up, subtly, like, where do you go to church or that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I've never been like a hard sell on like, I'm not going to force somebody in the faith.
No, for sure.
But yeah.
Where do you think the
just that
negative
power.
reaction comes from? But just like you said, your signature having the Bible verse in it.
Man, I think that, I believe that evil exists. If you're asking my personal opinion, I think that people have Satan on their back. And if they don't realize it, they're thrown off by, the name of Jesus or biblical verses, or, a lot of times they have like trauma in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're angry at God. So
Yeah.
either they're on the wrong side or they're angry at the Lord is typically the two things that I believe and I come across. So
Wow.
people get upset and you ask them, well, what's your deal with the Lord, or like, why are you so angry? And I just watched that movie. It's, gosh dang it, the one with the classroom and the kids like teaching the class about why God exists. It's like God
God's
is
not
dead.
dead.
God is not dead. That
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
And in my belief, everybody, most people have some type of interaction where they believed and then something happened, like trauma.
Yeah.
And then now it caused them not to believe. And it was funny because that was what I held true before.
Mm.
And then the movie depicts the exact same thing. He loses people to cancer and his mom. And so he's like, there can't be a God, right?
Yeah, he's angry at him.
Yeah, a lot of people just attest that to like they should have this perfect life and God should take care of his whole life and nothing bad should happen or he doesn't exist. And that's not at all what is being said. So anyways, just having that knowledge, I know that people go through things and lose the faith. And so I think that people are probably just hurting and they see it and they're angry at God and it sparks a reaction because they're in their mind. They're like, God didn't save my person or myself or whatever. So, God's not real. And the fact that you're sending this to me when I'm angry at God is going to spark a reaction. But,
yeah. No, that's true. That's good. I have I agree with everything you said. I think I have another perspective of that being in the church and like seeing Christian interaction with people who are not Christian. And in the way in which we can come off as almost self-righteous, or the way we can come off as dismissive of people's trauma, their pain, their hurt. And it's like, well, you don't have any right to be mad at God, or you don't have any reason to be mad at God. And a lot of the times, I'll say it this way. I find that people don't have an issue with Jesus. They have an issue with people who claim to represent Jesus. So they've had a negative interaction with a pastor, or they've had a negative interaction with a coworker who claims to be a Christian, and like they're not holding up the Christian values, and therefore it's like, well, if that's what your God looks like, then why would I want to follow him anyways? If your God is two-faced, or your God is talking behind my back, or your God isn't integrous, or and we've done like a disservice as Christians where we go, yeah, our life is just as jacked up as yours. So like, come on, like, why wouldn't you want to be a Christian? We go through the same thing you go through. And like, yeah, that's true. But if your life is no different than mine and you follow Jesus, why would I need to follow Jesus then?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to have the same outcome. And so again, I think sometimes it comes from bad representation, bad examples, or even bad theology of, man, we want to do such a good job of like attracting people that sometimes we water down the gospel in order to do it. And I think it has a negative consequences in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like in the church, you talk to so many people about the faith. Do you run across a lot of people that have like a twisted view of Christianity and like what it is?
Oh, 100%.
All the time?
100%. And it's crazy because it's like, you would think that the people who have the most twisted view of Christianity are those who aren't Christian, but I find it's the opposite. Like those who are devout Christians often have the most twisted view of Christianity.
What's the most common?
The most common is this idea that you can earn your way to heaven.
Yeah.
Or Here's one, and I've been chewing on this over the last 2 weeks, so
Okay.
you're gonna get some insider information.
Okay.
And it's super simple.
notes.
Yeah, take notes. It's super simple. All right.
Okay.
Healthy people have healthy habits. Unhealthy people have unhealthy habits. There's no exceptions.
Okay.
So what I see within Christianity is you have people who will take one healthy habit and try to cancel out 10 unhealthy habits. So you're living in sin, whatever that looks like in your context. You're not in tune with the Lord, right? You're not pressing in. You really don't have community around you. So you're isolated, you're by yourself. And then you come to me and you go, hey, can you pray for this situation? And I'm going, okay, like I can pray for that, but if there's no action behind the prayer, then you're going to stay in the situation you're in. So if you continue to isolate, you're going to be where you are. If you continue to live in sin, you're going to be where you are. If you continue not to press into your relationship with Jesus, you're going to be where you are. So I can pray all day for you, but if you're going to continue in the unhealthy habits, this one healthy habit ain't going to cancel out those. And so it's interesting in that regard where people will have these ideas of, well, I can do these unhealthy things as long as I have this one healthy thing in my life. It's not, it just doesn't work.
And I've seen people in the faith have like a, tell me if you've seen this too, is that they'll have one thing that they're doing, right? And they know it's wrong.
Yep.
And they're like, I don't know if it's just because they want attention or because they actually believe it, but they're like, yeah, I can't have a relationship with God, or God won't ever love me because I do X, you know, and they have this one thing that they do. And I'm like, I don't know if you have like listened at all to the word or like how God works, but it's not how it works. It's like, you know, the criminal got saved on the cross, the day of his death. So,
which is
trust
crazy.
Me, your thing, you can,
you can give it to God. God's shoulders are big enough to carry our burdens. And like, I think the issue I think is fear. Like you said, there's this idea that, man, I can't bring this to him, or I don't know how to bring it to him. Right? There's the ignorant aspect of it. I just don't know what I don't know. I think the other side of it is we don't, and it's so funny because I preached about this this past Tuesday here. I told our young adults, like the walk away, the application point was literally stop lying to yourself, stop making excuses for what you do, and stop justifying what you love. When we justify what we love, it's harder to walk away from it, right? And so again, like this may be the one thing that you say, oh, this is my burden, this is the sin that I'm in. But like, are you making excuses for that? Right? If you're making excuses for it, it's hard to walk away. If you're lying to yourself about it in the terms of, it's not as bad as like other things, or if you're justifying it like, well, this is the way in which I identify myself, or this is the way in which I find my purpose, then again, like it's going to be hard to walk away from, it's going to be hard to turn away from. And so again, I was just bringing it home to them, guys, like if we're going to follow Jesus and we're going to do the things that Jesus calls us to do, we got to stop lying to ourselves. We got to stop making excuses for what we do, and we got to stop justifying what we love. And I find in those situations, one of those three are at play, if not all three.
Yeah. I'd say wrap it all up in one word. I'm 100% with you. I think it's so true. Like accountability.
Yeah.
Like, but like personal accountability. If you wanted to add 2 words, I think that just people these days don't have personal accountability. You know, like when you see that movie and you got the star player and he's always like, man, my fault, guys. I missed the shot. Right? Yeah. Personal accountability. These days, it's always like, you guys are not passing me the ball and you guys threw it out of bounds, and they never want to have the negativity or the focus on their mistakes and the things that they're not doing. So it's like, I see that time and time again. And in the world today is that it's always somebody else's fault or problem. It's never them. They never can just admit, okay, maybe I'm the underlying issue here, something I need to correct. It's always outward. And that's with everybody. In business and personal and faith, it's always somebody else's fault.
No, I agree. It's funny. Me and my wife were actually talking about leadership last night and writing down like some leadership values just for our team. And one of the things that
for your team,
so like our leadership team for our college kids.
I was thinking of family.
Like my team, my unit.
You got a whole team, dude.
Yeah, Juju, he's only 5, but he's a boss.
Yeah, you got them all.
Yeah, but funny. That's funny. But we were literally talking about leadership last night, and I did like a T graph. So one side here, and I realized that leadership is 2 sides. There's like you said, the personal side, but then the interpersonal side. So like accountability. Yes, there is accountability that on the personal side, I need to take accountability for my actions, right? Like, again, I need to stop lying to myself. I need to stop making excuses for what I do, and I need to stop justifying what I love. So that's the personal side. The interpersonal side is, but I can do the same for others. I can help others stop lying about what they love. I can help others stop making excuses. And so it's two-sided, right? Like there has to be the personal accountability, but then there's also the interpersonal side where I'm stepping out and allowing like this, even allowing other people to speak into my life. Like I find that everybody wants accountability until they're held accountable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
nobody wants to hear the negativity. They all want to have that
100%.
that
Like
feeling of like, oh yeah, trust me, I'm on the right path.
100%. And I find that people have the negative kind of connotation or experiences with accountability when their identity is tied to what they do. Right. So like, let's say you are addicted to pornography, right? And I want to hold you accountable in that. As a Christian brother, I want to hold you accountable in that. And I'm like, man, do you not know like the scriptures and how Jesus tells us that even a look at a woman lustfully is to commit adultery? And your response to me is, well, you don't know my upbringing. You don't know what I've been through. You're absolutely right. I don't. And there's some deep rooted trauma there that maybe you need help walking through that I'm not sufficient enough to help you with. But at the same time, like if what you do is tied to your trauma or to even your identity, it's going to be a lot harder for you to receive the accountability that I'm bringing to you. You're going to see it as an attack on you. And it's like, no, it's because I love you.
Yeah. Especially if the accountability is not preset, like prior. Like you don't talk about it. You're just like you walk in one day and you're like, dude, that's what you've been doing, It's like, 'cause I feel like people get in the defense mode.
Yeah.
And it's, everybody sins, right? Like no matter who you are.
No,
so
100%.
I just feel, I've seen people like, yeah, man, like, even students or whatever trying, and they're like, you shouldn't do this. Like, I saw you at that party last night.
Literally.
It's like, why are you telling me about my stuff? When
Yeah.
it's like defense mode versus us learning to be able to take, I think there's always a right approach. There's a right way to present things. Presentation's everything. Tone, presentation, setting, not in front of everybody's, friends or buddies because they'll get real defensive. I've seen it all, man. I'm like,
no,
what's wrong with you? Why would you think this is a good idea?
Yeah. And again,
Time and place.
Going back into like the negative experience with Christians, like, oh, I just felt like the Spirit told me to say this. The Spirit told you to say this in front of 15 people, right? You're going to call me on the carpet. You're not going to come to me in private. Like Jesus tells us, hey, if you have an offense with someone, you should go to them privately. If they don't receive you, then you bring another person. If they don't receive you guys, then you bring a counsel with you. If they don't receive that, you disfellowship them. We literally go, bro, I saw you doing that thing. Hey, everybody, like this guy over here. And we're like,
group text.
Yeah. Literally, hey, I just felt like the Lord told me to tell so-and-so in this group text about, you've really been dropping the ball here. I'm like, the Lord told you that? Like, what Lord are you serving?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, definitely they're just tearing apart friendships on their own.
No, 100%. Yeah. But even the example that you brought up of, like with teenagers, they bring something to a person and they're like, well, I saw you at that party. I think it goes back to what you said, like personal accountability. Like if I am not even taking personal accountability for myself, then I really don't have the right to try to speak into someone else's life. And like one thing that I teach, like even our leadership or some of the guys that I'm discipling is don't ever step into a space you weren't invited into. Meaning like, if I think that it's my job to tell you where you're going wrong, did you give me invitation to do that? Right? Did you say, hey, Isaiah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this thing. Oh man, thank you for inviting me into that space. I'm not just going to show up and rip your whole life to shreds, right? Like, and I think that's where we miss it. We try to kick doors down or step into spaces that no one has invited us into, and it just causes problems.
Yeah, you gotta create that space where people feel comfortable, and sometimes it takes weeks, days, or days, weeks, months, years, whatever, to create that safe space where people come forth. Because we've seen it in our groups, and I'm sure your groups, where like you'll have students that haven't said anything in 3 months, and all of a sudden they go speak in front of the entire student congregation about something they're struggling with when they finally have the opportunity. But it wasn't ever forced. It wasn't ever, nobody ever went up to them and said, I see what you're doing, even though it may be visible, but I mean, all the vapes kids are giving up. Like it's not really hidden. People, you can, who's doing it. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're giving it up and saying that they don't want to do it anymore. But it's not like it was forced on them. So I think, God really comes to people through compassion, through his time, not ours. Yeah. And through his own ways. We're just here to help oil the field, but he's the one planting.
I think it goes back to even exposure too, right? Like I think about my own testimony, and like one of the reasons and why I was able to make a shift in my own life is because I sat with men for 3 to 4 months doing a Bible study in like a men's group, and I didn't say a word. I just got to sit and be in the presence of these guys. And they talked about, their standards, and they talked about their marriages and their children, and being transparent about their struggles. And like just being able to sit there and experience it and be exposed to it was enough for me to see the change that I need in my own life. I can't even recall, and I'm not even joking, I can't even recall a handful of times where someone came up to me and just like, hey, I see this in your life, you need to change it. Like they just let me be there. Like they just let me be present and be exposed. And in doing that, it allowed me to shift and change. And so in the same way with these students that you're talking about, no one's having to necessarily call them out directly. Like there's a time for that. But if they're exposed to something different for long enough, they'll yearn for that, or they'll reject it completely and go somewhere else. Either way, we can be satisfied with the result. So,
yeah, I think something, just a visual popped in my head, but it's kind of interesting, is I think that learning to follow the Lord and honestly like navigating life can be messy. It's like being dropped in like a thick forest, right? And you're really combing through it, and you've got like even maybe a machete.
Yeah.
And you've seen those movies, and you're like chopping and trying to get through everything, and you're like, hopefully I'm going the right way. You're tripping over branches. It's very frustrating, and you don't really understand, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get an idea, and it pops into your head, like, okay, what if I get a different perspective, right? So the next thing you know, you climb the tallest tree you can find.
Yeah.
And from the tallest tree and the vantage point you have, now you can actually see out across and see where you need to go.
Yeah.
I think sometimes God opens our eyes in life that way, is that we feel like we're just fighting everything around us because we have the wrong perspective. We can't see the big picture.
Yeah.
And then God, whenever we start to believe and start diving into his word and they really learn who he is, I think that it opens our eyes to the big picture.
Yeah.
And now we're on top of this tall tree, able to look out and actually see where our path is. And that doesn't necessarily change the hardship of the path so much as it changes our mindset.
Yeah, that's good.
It's not going to affect how difficult the walk is, because the bushes and the trees and the machete hacking are still in front of us.
Yeah,
right.
That's
but
good.
we have a way better vantage point. At least we know where we're going, and I think even that would give anybody confidence.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I see parallel with life and with people.
That was worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I was asking the Lord for something. I was like, man, give me something to.
That's
something
crazy
to
because
say.
I love how you prefaced it, because you said, yeah, I was just sitting here and I got a visual. And I'm like, bro, that's your visions?
Yeah. Every now and then.
God, that's a good vision.
Yeah.
Like this man's chopping down brush.
You gotta catch them every now and then. If I wait another 30 seconds, I'd be like, I had one, and I don't remember, and it just slipped my mind. And my memory is not the best.
That's funny.
I forget a lot of things.
What I love so much about even that illustration is the fact that, like, you had talked about even chopping down the brush or even climbing the tree. There's work, and like it doesn't take the hard out of doing it, but there's a reward at the end of doing it, so to speak.
Yep.
And so, man, that's so good. A different vantage point, different perspective. I feel like oftentimes, like even for me, like that's what shifts everything in my life, is when I change my perspective or when I gain new insight and understanding. It's like, oh, okay, now I can make the shift that I need. If I'm stubborn, if I'm blind to my own blind spots, if I'm not allowing people to speak into my life, I think that's where I become stuck. And I find a lot of people in that space where, no, you can't talk to me. You can't tell me about my life. You can't speak into that. Like, you don't know me. And you may be right. And that's okay. But you mean to tell me you don't have anybody who knows you? You don't have anybody who can speak into that? That's the bigger issue for me. Not that I can't speak into your life, that you have no one speaking into your life. And so it's cool.
Yeah, people get frustrated when they get away from God and they think they're doing the wrong things. And I mean, a question, I think a good question for you that you could probably answer too is like, why does God choose over and over again to use imperfect people to do his works in the Bible, right? Because everybody that he uses is imperfect.
Yeah.
Even those closest to his heart.
Yeah. I think it's funny. 2 Corinthians talks about it. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And like Paul goes on to talk about how he boasts in his weaknesses. Like I'm proud of the fact that I don't have it all figured out. I'm proud of the fact that I can't do it on my own. And I think, to your point, the reason why God uses his imperfect people to show you how perfect he really is, right? Like if he used perfect people, I say this all the time, like if God used you to do something, how long do you think it'll take before you start looking at yourself versus looking at God? Like how long would it take you to go, man, I did a really good job in that. Like, I really nailed that versus, man, the glory to God, right? And it's so quick, like so easy, where even for me, I could preach a message and someone goes, man, that message really changed my life. That was amazing. I go, yeah, like I did a lot of work on that message, a lot of research, a lot of studying. Man, I felt like I was really in the pocket, and like the whole while, God is the one who gets in the pocket. Right?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
The whole while, God is the one who was imparting that in me. And think about it from this perspective. Everything that I said, I stole from him anyways. Right? Like if I'm teaching his word, it's his inspired word. Like I'm taking credit for teaching what he has revealed to his people. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hot stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Like when he uses imperfect people, it shows us that we're all imperfect and that God can use all of us, but also it shows that he is just that good.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a perfect answer. It's the same what I believe is that you nailed the head with it. It just gives us an example of the feeling of like, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
Even the people that were like, I always think back to like David and you just, his chosen person and having issues and Bathsheba and, having somebody, all the things that he did, it was like, a lot of times way worse than what people are doing today. Yeah. And people are still like, man, I don't think God would ever love me, even if I did, start a relationship with him. I hear that time and time again from people. I'm like, man, I don't, they obviously just don't know even the basis of the word, right? Like,
no, for sure.
If God is absolute love, like why wouldn't he accept you back, which he is, but people just have this twisted view. So I just think that sometimes the wrong message is being spread. And I've even heard other believers like teach people the wrong, wrong things or whatever. And I can't tell you how many people or times I hear, they've done a lot of good things in their life, so hopefully they're in heaven. I'm like, man, that's really not how it works.
Yeah. And
like,
that's
unfortunately,
that's the unfortunate aspect of it, like you said, of just, I call it bad theology, right? Like when we are believing something about God that just isn't true or biblical, it's just bad theology. And the thing that I think irks me the most in all of that is the thing that irks me the most. You try to say irk and most right after. See what comes out. I'm murking all this. I think again, I think the thing that irks me the most, I'm conscious thinking about it, is when Christians are the one who are spreading kind of the bad theology, or they don't even understand themselves. Yep. So like, I'm gonna try my best not to give the person away, and I'm sorry because if you watch this, you're gonna know I'm talking about you. But I had a young man ask me a question in terms of like dealing with sin, and he prefaced it with, "Hey, I saw this video on Instagram, and this person, yeah, exactly, and this person said something along the lines of, man, it's okay to sin because your sin actually pushes you towards God." And he's like, when I heard it, like it gave me a sense of peace. And he's talking about like his own sin and like in lust and pornography. And he's like, it gave me a sense of just comfort knowing that, my sin isn't that bad. And also like in another way, it's pushing me towards God. And he goes, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I'm so glad that you asked me. Like, watch my Instagram video. Yeah, watch. Go to my Instagram account. Yeah. No, I was like, I'm glad that you asked me because I'm in this season of my life. I'm learning to have the conversations that I need to have, not the ones that I think people want to have. And so I said, that sounds good, but it's just not biblical. And I said, we don't build our life on good ideas. We build our lives on biblical truth. And so I walked him through like where Jesus talks about a person who lusts after another. They've committed adultery in their heart. And just walked him through like, do you realize in the Old Testament, man, like adultery, the penalty for adultery was death. Mm-hmm. Right. So I said, if you fast forward and you think of it from a spiritual standpoint, right now, what you're doing is you're telling me either you're possibly bringing death to yourself or death to the person that you're lusting after. And I said, like, if you tell me that if I did something that there's a chance I might die doing it, I promise you the probability of me doing that goes extremely down. Yeah. Right. And so I'm like, okay, so that's one side of it. I said the other side of it is you're actively tearing apart what God has put together. And I said, do you think God's going to stand back and watch you tear apart a covenant? Like, you think he's okay with that? He's like, no. I was like, okay, well, that's one side. And I said, the other side is if you're lusting after someone, you're actually marring the image of God because they're made in the image of God, whether they know it or not. I said, another side of it is if you're married or you're in a relationship, you're rejecting your partner by lusting after that person. And I said, lastly, Jesus basically says you're not a disciple if you actually do that. So I said, all right, we can go through all 5 of those. Like,
So you went easy on it?
Yeah, I'm like, those are all biblical truth. And then I got to the end and I said, now, adultery is consensual, which doesn't make it right, but it's still wrong. And you fall into all 5 or all 6 of those categories of doing those things. But I said, imagine if it's not consensual, meaning if you're staring at someone and they don't want you staring at them, or you're lusting after someone and you don't want them lusting after, they don't want you lusting after them. I said, what do we call non-consensual things like that? It's like, well, rape. And I said, okay, now this might be extreme, but how many people have you raped with your thoughts and ideas? And he's like, whoa, I've never thought of it that way. And I said, yeah, that Instagram didn't tell you that. That Instagram video didn't tell you that, right?
Dude's going to be looking down everywhere he walks from now on.
But again, I would rather him look down everywhere he goes and stops his heart from like indulging in that, so that he can honor his future wife, right? Like, and it's not a struggle that he has to worry about. He won't
find her because he's looking down. But
oh, gotta reveal her. But again, it's one of those things where like we can build our lives on good ideas, even though it's bad theology. And I'm like, as Christians, at least, that's not what we're called to do.
Yeah, like you said, it sounds good, and it's because we want to mold it to fit our behavior.
Yeah,
we want things to be right, just so we don't feel as bad.
Yeah,
but it's okay. I mean, I agree with you in my season of life too. It's better just to like, instead of like messing around the subject and trying to get them to understand it by like, hey, here's some clues.
Yeah,
it's easier just to kind of come out there and say it. And I think one piece of absolute or actual truth trumps 100 pieces of non-truth.
Yeah.
So even if you feel like you're gonna offend somebody or whatever, just by telling them the truth and helping them lead the right way, at least they've been given a piece of actual truth.
100%.
It's weighted more than anything else.
And again, I'm not exempt from that. Like, I feel like I keep going back to this verse, we just keep talking about it, but Jesus saying even a man who lusts after a woman has committed adultery in his heart. Part of my testimony, even with Jenna, is we were together for 5.5 years with 2 kids before we even got married. So we were toxic. And I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the relationship. But one of the truths that I held on to was, man, I've never physically cheated on you. And she would say things like, well, you emotionally cheated on me. I'm like, that's not even a thing. Like, you're just making stuff up, right? Like, you're just making stuff up to try to hold something against me. I'm like, bro, like, I never actually physically cheated with another woman. I might have texted them. I might have flirted with them. I might have, like, portrayed certain things, but I never actually did the physical act. So I would like hold on to that. Yeah. And I remember like sitting on the steps at the front of our apartment, and I don't know why, but I just like flipped open the Bible. I was trying to become a new Christian at that time, and it opened up to that verse. It was, even if you look at a woman with lustful intent, you commit adultery in your heart. And I remember it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, okay, so Jesus is saying, even when I look at someone, I've committed the act of cheating. And I'm like, ain't no way. Like, I've literally told Jenna this whole time that I'm in the good, I'm in the clear, because I never physically did it. But then this man, Jesus, who I barely know, who I'm saying I'm trying to run after, is telling me, no, you did do it. And I remember it changed my whole perspective. And so to your point, like, one absolute truth trumps all of these other ones that we try to build our lives on. And so,
well, don't get discouraged if you flip open the Bible for an issue that doesn't go to the exact verse you need. I can't remember what that's called. It's like a phenomenon or something, but there's a word for it, and people are like,
open, and it's right there.
And it's like, they open it Genesis 1, or I don't know how you do that.
You know what's crazy about that is I wonder even if I didn't just like open it, I just like flipping through it and like, oh, messing around. Oh, that'll make sense. And then I stumbled upon it. I wonder if I did that, but in my mind, I'm like, a better testimony? Really cool testimony is I opened it right up and it was right there.
In your mind, that is truth. I believe that you believe that is true.
I believe that you believe you made that up.
That is true. Is that you believe that, and I believe that you believe that.
But yeah, to your point, hey, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that you're going to open the Bible and all your issues there.
Maybe it takes 15 times. Keep trying it, praying and trying it, or maybe you're missing the point. Maybe if you open it to you're trying to look for this answer and you open it to 1. Maybe it's answering the real issue of another problem.
Or you just randomly open to Numbers and you have no idea what you're looking at.
If you hit the lineage, I don't have to tell you. Good luck reading through all that.
I want God to increase my bank account. I'm going to go to Numbers.
Well, give me your digits,
That's funny.
I think, that's one. And then 2 is that the fact that you were a new Christian, open to reading and then just like taking the truth, that as gold. Most people be like, this is dumb. And close the book.
And it's so
But-
like, even to, I'm glad you said that, like opening and going, like taking his gold. I will tell you, even in that moment, like it hit me, but it wasn't like it didn't sit in me, right? Like I saw it, I felt it. I'm like, oh wow, like, and I wrestled with it. Like, I don't know if I believe that's true. Because again, I'm new to this. Like, I don't know if I believe that's true. And like constantly reiterating and going back to it, and then seeing like the character of Jesus throughout, because he talks about even anger, right?
Yep.
If you're angry with someone, don't even bring your gift to the altar. Don't even come to church and worship. Like, go to that person and be reconciled. And so even for him, he's saying, man, it's better that you go to that person and have reconciliation than come to church and throw your hands up and sing worship songs and listen to a good word when you have this anger harboring in your heart, because it's going to do more damage than good. And so I'm like reading these things, and obviously I can unpack them now because I've like studied it and like walked through it. Back then, man, I'm like, I don't know if this is true, but like it hits me and I feel a certain way about it. And through grace and the patience of other people and mentorship and discipleship, I was able to come to a realization of like, no, this is true, and what I'm doing is wrong, and I'm seeing the effects of it in my relationship with Jenna. So
That's so cool.
Yeah.
The fact that you mentioned like 4 things that helped you see the truth, and it's sometimes it's not just, it's not just an us thing where we just are going to make it happen. Sometimes it takes a friend, it takes a mentor, it takes a pastor, it takes a coach. That's why everybody plays such important roles, and why we all have different jobs, and why sometimes we may feel stuck in the position we're in, but we're called to be there for somebody else. It's not always just like, what's the best thing for our life? Why am I still in this job, God? Why didn't I get to move to this day? Why didn't I get to go to that college? And God's like, look, it's not for you. It's not always about what you're going to get out of it so much as what are you going to do for somebody else.
Yeah, and I wish somebody would have told me that early on in following Jesus, that like the best parts of my life weren't going to be about me, right? Like when I look at my kids and how they've grown and like how they teach me things, or even the people that I've been able to mentor and love on, or even my wife for that matter, like the best parts about my life is seeing other people flourish and grow. And I wish somebody would have told me that, because I think the first part of like even following Jesus, I've only been following Jesus for 9 years, so I don't think that I'm like deep in the game, but like I wish somebody would tell me that the best parts would be watching someone else versus how much I could grow and how much I could learn and like how much I could achieve. I feel like, man, when my mindset is there, it's so draining. I get so irritated. I'm so short tempered. But when I focus on other people and their success, it's more life giving for me, at least.
I think a lot of that's modeled. It's easier to come to that realization whenever you have kids, I believe.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden it's like, you could be doing great things, but even like you look at, politics aside, but you've got like Trump who's running for presidency, but he goes to his son's graduation and he's like clapping, he's proud. It doesn't matter. You can't, when you have that relationship of like family and kiddos, it doesn't matter what you've done. You're celebrating what other people, what your kiddos have done even more, because you're like so like that's everything. And you realize that it's not about me, it's about what other people are achieving and the happiness. It's better to give than to receive.
And it's funny too, because when you funny, not as in like haha, but funny as in the realization.
Because I
was like, what I'm going to say is going to sound morbid, so I don't want to get the wrong idea. It's funny because at the end of people's lives, when they're on their deathbed, the number one regret is that I wish I would have spent more time with my family, right? And so like you can open that up broader and go, people are wishing that they would have spent more time with people, right? It's like the people you have around you are the most important thing at the end of your life. So why not in the middle or the beginning? And so I think if we can get there when we recognize just the value of people in our lives and the people around us, life would be more fulfilling.
Yeah, they're not yelling for more money and a car on their deathbed. They're 100%. Not like, man, I wish I had another $1 million.
I wish I would have bought that Lamborghini.
Yeah, you can't take any of that with you, and it's like it's fun to have. I mean, honestly, anything that's worthwhile having, if you're not sharing with somebody else, like I've never seen. It's rare that I see somebody in a Lambo alone, because they want to share it with somebody else, and whether their intentions are right or not, but they always have like somebody right in the side, or they get these crazy yachts that I see on Instagram all the time. There's like a whole crew, because like people want people around to honestly to celebrate them in those moments for the most part. But, it's not as fun if it's by yourself.
No, 100%.
They just can't make the connection of like what's the most important.
Yeah. As we close, I got a question for you, because I've been feeling this in my life, and I want to know, like, is it just a me thing, or is it like a generic thing or a general thing? As you've gotten older, has your desire for things in terms of like the list of things that you want to accomplish? As you've gotten older, has that list gotten smaller?
Number one, older is not a term that I would really want to use in here. I'm
just saying,
turning
as you've gotten
33.
older, I didn't say
Yeah.
how old you were.
Okay.
You did.
Yeah. As I've aged slowly.
As you've aged like fine
Yeah,
wine.
yeah,
Your
exactly.
list.
As I get closer to where I would be considered older, then, if that makes sense, then I would say,
He's stuck on being old.
yeah, I'm starting to be old. I'm starting to forget what you've asked me.
His brain's shut down.
My list.
Your list of things to do and accomplish.
My
Has it gotten longer or has it gotten shorter?
I really didn't forget. I kind of forgot, and then it came back to
well,
me.
you know, that's part of getting old. You forget simple things.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, I guess. The list changes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like anything, like you plan for something and then life just completely flips it around.
Yeah.
I think my list gets shorter, but it almost gets harder. Like my list before was more simple.
Okay.
I had a lot of things that were very simple, easy achievable things, and now it's like things that take work and years and time. Like before you're talking about, I want to make $100,000 and like I want to own my dream car at the time, and then now it's like, man, like I want to write a book.
Yeah.
And like I want to travel the world, and I want to get married, and I want to have kids, and I want to, do what God has planned for me, and all these things. Sometimes it takes way more time, effort, money, energy than the things that like back in the day you wanted. So I think the list just changes.
No, for sure.
Probably simplifies a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen the same?
Good. Yeah. Like I had a conversation with BPI a couple days ago. Yeah, baby pasteurized. Yeah, and he asked me a question that sparked it, and I just said, "Man, like,
how does he say it?"
I don't even remember.
Hi.
Yeah, hey, what's up, bro? And I'm joking. He don't talk like that. But he asked me a question. I don't remember what the question was, but I remember my answer was along the lines of, "Man, the older that I've gotten, the shorter my list has gotten for the things that I want to achieve." And like to your point, I think maybe it hasn't necessarily gotten shorter. No, it has. For me, it has. It's gotten shorter, but it's become more refined and more intentional, right? Like when I was younger, like you said, there were things that I wanted. Like, oh man, I'd love to have this car. I'd love to go to this place, and I'd love to make X amount of dollars. But as I've gotten older, it's like, man, I just want to spend time with my wife, or like I want to watch my kids grow up, or like you said, I want to write a book. Yeah, like, I really want to write a book. Not that I feel like I have much to say, but I feel like it's something that God's put on my heart.
Oh man, I bet you got a lot to say. I've heard you talk.
Yeah. But even in that, like it's just the list has become more refined, and there's less things that I want in this stage of my life. The things that I want have more value to them, but it's less things that I want. And I feel like when I was younger, that list was you're like, what the heck? Yeah. But yeah,
the receipt at Walgreens
just keeps going and going and going.
Dollar store, that kind of thing. Yeah, I've been
Dude, they print out some of the longest.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're getting like 30 items.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? Use it for toilet paper or what? But no, I appreciate you having me on your podcast, and I enjoy watching you and is it Connor? Colin, mess your name up. My bad, bro. Colin.
Edit it.
Just chop it out.
Yeah.
No, it's fun watching you guys kind of conversate about the business world and real estate, and even for you, as you're older, speaking into a younger guy's life and kind of leading the way forward and helping him kind of navigate some of the roadblocks ahead or even some of the hurdles is just really cool to watch. And so continue doing it, man.
I'm glad it's now and not 7 years ago.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it's now and not, when you're 40, because you're almost there. But
because I'm almost there. Yeah, I'm almost there. You're not gonna beat me there, are you? How do you?
I'm not telling you all that.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. If you guys like this, obviously, definitely subscribe to Zay's channel, his page. He does a lot of amazing things. He's an expert editor. He'll likely be editing this video as well. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having it on, and I'll teach you some chess the next time we do one of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can play, but I think it's important to spread business, love, faith.
Yeah.
Spread the things that we believe in. So
no, 100%.
Appreciate you helping me do that, teaching somebody that needs it.
Appreciate you. Hey, and like always, stay frosty.
Stay frosty. Just do it and do a big smile.
You think I was going to pull it out?
Yeah, I didn't think so.